her camera.
It just takes a little while.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think we generally are in favor
So
of
you'll
your
share the
meeting
second one.
arrangement.
Yeah, but I thought,
All right, Steph,
For
where's
some
my
reason-
packet?
Well, I'd like to welcome you all.
Yeah,
Well,
Thank
maybe
you.
we used to do it in June, to start in June.
We'll wait for Bob to finish here.
Yeah,
Just
maybe
take
that.
one.
that may-
Pardon? No,
Too.
I forgot to take it home.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. This is a municipal water system information meeting for the King Edward Bay neighborhood. For those of you who haven't met me yet or seen me around Bowen, my name is Rod Fair. I'm the new Chief Financial Officer of the district. I started here in February. And we've been holding meetings for basically water systems in every neighborhood on Bowen. This is the last of 7 meetings this week. So without any further ado, tonight's meeting and the public information meeting will be talking about basically I'll be going over some quick facts and some financial information, and then Bob will be going over capital and water quality report that's filed with Coastal Vancouver Health Authority on an annual basis. And after questions, we'll be concluding the public information meeting and stepping into the local advisory committee meeting, and you're all welcome to stay for that as well. But that meeting is open to the public as well. So without any further ado, I'm just going to go over basically a quick summary of the meeting here. We're going to go over a few quick facts. I've got a consumption graph, which we've got in your handouts as well, and then I'll go over the financial results, 5-year financial plan, and Bob will go over the drinking water quality report. So in terms of water system in King Edward Bay, there are 23 connections. The water supply comes from deep water well or deep water wells?
3.
3 different deep water wells. Relatively new infrastructure, about 2008. The way the system works is there's an annual charge of $700 per resident. Empty lots are charged $473 flat rate. And then in the summer months from June till October, there is a metered charge. You're allowed to use up to 7,200 gallons a month at no additional charge. And then essentially the structure is next 1,800 meters over 7,200 meters are charged at 2 cents per gallon per month. So your meter, and then the 3,000 gallons between 9,000 and 1 would charge at a slightly higher rate, and then somebody consuming over 12,000 gallons would be charged for that portion of water at 20 cents a gallon per month. In terms of consumption, what that implies, so this is basically all of the consumers on the system kind of mapping their consumption. You can see consumption is all over the place. This consumption is the period from February 2017 to the end of December in 2017. And the average consumption per household during that period of time was 25,700 gallons. And you can consume up to about 84,000 gallons a year with almost, I think, without attracting the metered charge kicking in. And all this is showing is whether you're consuming 25,700 gallons of water or whether you're consuming close to $80,000 of 80,000 gallons of water, you're paying the same amount annually for water. You're paying $700, even though you have a metered rate structure in place.
Is there an explanation to
To the high consumer?
to that particularly?
I don't know if that would be a water leak or somebody with extremely larger needs to water their garden and whatnot, or a swimming pool. Bob, you might be able to comment better than myself.
that wasn't a leak.
That wasn't a leak? Okay. So if somebody's just consuming a lot more water than the other.
So if I understand it, then there are 5 connections that are above average. Is that one way to
That's
read that?
correct. That would be
Okay.
one way of looking at it. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. One right at the average there.
It might be helpful to order it by consumption rather than just by number of connections, because that's kind of arbitrary. It would give me an idea of what the distribution looked like. Do you understand that?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can order it that way.
It's just, the skew is probably kind of
Yeah.
important,
Okay.
and as well as the variance, so
Yeah.
it'd be a little bit more perceptible that way.
Nobody overconsumed.
Any other?
There's nobody, no overcharges in other words.
Pardon?
There are
There's no, the meter charge doesn't, haven't kicked in here, so it appears all of the water bills for King Edward Bay were $100 in 2017.
2018, we've had some overcharges. I think so, yeah.
There were no overcharges?
In 2017, from what I saw in the data.
Last year.
Okay.
Although that's kind of skewed because that's telling you for a year where you do your meter readings in the summer, so you could
Actually,
use, you could be,
yeah,
there could be
That
low
might
in the
be
winter and all of a
reiterated,
sudden the
yeah.
summer.
Somebody could
That'd be
use
correct,
1,000 gallons of.
yeah, because I averaged the annual consumption to calculate the, I assumed water was being consumed evenly in my calculation over here. So I didn't have the readings for the summer months, to look
Yeah.
at. So it could be that meter charge kicked in, so I apologize for that, yeah. But,
Rogers, who would somebody call to find out what number one person was?
You're not gonna find out.
Somebody have a secret.
You're not gonna find out
privacy,
unless it's
privacy of
you call.
information.
Unless it's you,
Why, that's, I'm afraid, I don't know.
you
You
would have got
could
a
phone to
letter.
ask if I was the one, but they won't tell you who it was, if it isn't you.
But if I call up, somebody will tell me that
Yep.
number.
I will give you your meter reading numbers.
We can give you your meter,
Your-
but yeah, if you wanted to find out which number you were on there, we can tell you, given there's 23 connections.
I don't need a public declaration here. I don't have to write it.
Stephen, what you asked right now, wasn't you?
But you do get a letter. You'll get a letter if you're overusing in the summer.
You can get a letter.
That's not you then.
But can we, next year, can we develop summer numbers? Because that's what really matters
Mhm.
to all the residents, I think.
For sure.
Thank you.
You on that. So I'm gonna step into the financial results. I'm gonna focus on the middle column here, which is the actual results for 2017. So we collected $29,000 in user fees, and that 17,936, I've actually got it rolling into the wrong column. That transfers in is meant to be transfers in from reserves, but both the budget for the sale of water, budget and actuals for sale of water rolled up to the transfers in. That should be in other revenue. So that 17,936 is the sale of water to Blue Water Park, and it's also included in your transfers outlined down below. So you basically had $47,000 of revenue in total, and the operating costs for the system were $33,000, which left you with approximately $14,000 going to your reserves. The amortization, I'll present this differently next year as well. Again, I've got the amortization showing there, and that's a non-cash expense. So there's no fees that go towards it or anything, so I'll present your expenditures before amortization so that you can relate them to what the user fees and revenues go to pay for.
Sorry, but are you saying that there's no cash transfer associated with that 33,000?
With that 32,000, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So it balances.
Other than that, any questions on the actual financials before I move on to your 5-year financial plan?
Could I just ask, how's the amortization
Calculated?
calculated?
It's TCA rules, so tangible capital asset rules through public sector accounting board rules that apply to that. So it's basically based on the book value of assets, amortized based on the type of asset it is and the recommended years, recommended life according to PSAP. So this doesn't have anything to do with the actual life cycle cost, it's accounting depreciation.
What is the amortization rate? I think you said at the earlier
It's
meeting,
different for the
35-year life cycle,
Yeah,
but
it depends on when pipes are replaced, so I don't remember off the top of my head what the life cycle for pipes might be, 20 years? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think it's
Loaders, yeah, so like it would be different for the building, different for the
of course,
machinery,
yeah.
and different life cycle for the vehicles,
okay.
et cetera.
But having identified the amortization, where does that,
Number come from?
but where does it leave to? I mean, that.
What does it lead to?
Yes,
So it's basically a recognition of your capital costs over the accounting life of those assets. So-
indeed, and that money goes to, that we're taking out of that budget,
So
that goes into our reserve?
It's not money.
it's
not-
not
not
money we're
money.
collecting
Cash.
from.
We're
the
just
users.
identifying it.
Yeah, it's just identified for accounting purposes, and that's why I said I'll break it out separately.
Right.
What we will be doing is going through basically developing asset plans, going through your assets, looking at life cycle expectancies of your assets to establish what should go into reserves to take care of your
So
infrastructure.
would that result in a balance sheet then, assets and liabilities for the system?
For the system itself,
Yeah.
I mean, we do have, I haven't presented it here, but
Okay.
each utility would have its own balance sheet because it is a self-standing fund.
Okay, that
But
would
what
be
we do
useful.
is
That would be useful information.
On the financial statements, all the ones that
consolidate
are
it.
lumped together in one,
Oh, okay.
one thing, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
It could be looked at.
So,
So this is just our portion.
so this, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
moving
so
on
for
from the
that break.
financials to the five-year financial plan here, this is the 2018 to 2022 five-year financial plan that was approved by council back in April. And essentially, utilities are always self-funded, so, which means that the the revenues that come into a utility go to pay for the operating costs of the utility. And for 2018, essentially I used the 2017 revenue because we didn't change your fees from 2017. There was no fee increase. We'll be looking at your fees in the context of our operating costs in 2019 onwards. In this plan, what I did is I used a CPI index of 2% to inflate costs for each outer year. So on roughly you've got about $28,200 or $28,000 a year that you're collecting in user fees, and it's anticipated that you'll be selling about $10,000 of water, Blue Water Bay on an annual basis. And that's your revenue stream, and then your expenses are listed down below that. They range between $39,000 and $42,000 in 2022. Yes?
Raj, have you factored into the user fees, the number of empty lots that have now had development on them? That is, we will get some increase over the years, just as more lots get
They go from
occupied.
400 or so to 700.
Yeah,
At this point, I haven't. That is an exercise we'll do when we do the next five-year
Mhm.
financial plan.
Okay.
I've obviously got a little bit better understanding than I did when I first stepped in.
sure, yeah, no, I was just wondering.
Municipality, so. But definitely we'll take that into consideration.
There's probably another.
This is strictly, I'm totally honest with you, this is just applying a CPI index to each year.
Yeah. But there will be 16 more houses that come on
Yeah,
stream.
so we should take that into consider, the timing of approximately when they're gonna come on.
Yeah.
So I'll talk to planning on that, and we'll incorporate that to get a better, more accurate picture. of revenue stream. Any other questions on the five-year financial plan?
Just one question about, thank you for putting it together and putting it through council in April. I just wonder if we've been slow, our LIC's been slow in meeting, we haven't met for a little while. And so you've gone ahead and approved it at council, which is good, but we've had no contribution to that at all. We've been.
My plan going forward with that is for you to participate in the budget process. So this will be prepared during the budget process, which I haven't got a timeline for that.
But you've assured me already, thank you
Yeah.
for that.
So you'll have an opportunity to participate in the five-year financial plan.
Sorry?
We last met in November, was it?
No, a little bit back.
You met in 2016, I think.
It was a long time.
Yeah, it was probably.
Time flies when we're having fun.
Just too relaxed here, that's the truth.
Well, I think part of the reason you didn't have a meeting was we were without a chief financial officer to prepare all of that, and just getting started, I had so much to do, I did not have time during the budget process for meetings. Okay, so from the moving on from the 5-year financial plan, we've got capital program for the next 5 years. I've got the actuals for 2017. In here, we replaced a pump in 2017. We had a budget provision to replace it as well, and then we basically put in a provision for each year's 2018 on to 2022 for replacement of I guess it's just a pump replacement is what we have a
Well,
provision
pumps,
for,
yeah.
right? And then in 2018, we have a utility vehicle. This is the prorated cost of a vehicle which was purchased for exclusive use in the utilities. And so what we did is we had an old rundown vehicle which basically was not safe to use, and it was replaced with a new vehicle. And so King Edward Bay has been prorated a cost of that vehicle based on the number of connections relative to the total number of connections in the water system.
May I just ask a little bit about that?
Yeah.
I see that vehicle every day, every single day coming by.
No, that's the little white
That's the one.
Ranger. No, that's not the one we're talking about.
No.
And you know the old red fire truck that's sort of faded, it's almost pink on the sides?
Yeah,
That's the one that we have to replace. That's the one that carries all the equipment and stuff like that.
right.
So we replaced that with a new 3/4 ton crew cab.
Well, we talked about that vehicle at our November 27th meeting. I'm pretty sure. I just looked at the minutes.
Yeah, saying that it's on its last legs.
Those outside. But that, attending to our water
Yeah,
somewhere, every single day,
yeah.
what information is?
Here, you're spoiling, I get to talk later.
I'll be quiet.
Any other questions on the capital, or if not, I'm gonna hand it over to Bob and let him do the rest of the talking for the evening. Oh, hold on, no, I have one more slide to go over, sorry, I forgot about that. So your opening reserve balance is just shy of $25,000. Our projected contribution to reserves in the budget for 2018 is $5,900. If we end up replacing a pump, everything that basically we put into the reserve goes in here, and then if we need to do any capital works, the funding for those comes out of the reserve. So I don't think we've spent anything this year, so knock on wood that, Bob, have we spent anything? I haven't looked.
Oh, I've replaced the
And so if we don't have to replace anything, your reserve balance will go to $30,000, because we won't have $12,000 coming out. But right now, I've basically gone with the financial plan numbers and given the most conservative view of what'll happen with the reserve balance.
So how often do you have to replace a pump? Like,
Whenever it quits.
yeah, but do they last for 2 or 3 years on average, or 5 years?
Some will last 5 years, some will last 10 years, some will last 2 years. That's why we put it in every year. We don't spend it, it's not a big deal.
So we've only had to replace one since the system started?
No, we replaced them before.
Oh, okay.
The big one, about 5 years ago.
Yeah, seems about right.
Any other questions on financial information or the reserve? If not, I'm gonna turn it over to Bob to.
Well, I just hate to be devil's advocate here. What, is that reserve big enough? Do we need to be building it up?
I don't know, we have to basically get our asset management plans and our asset life cycle
Yeah.
information together to be able
Thinking.
to establish what level reserve contributions should be at. I mean, right now, nominal balance in the reserve right now, so I would suspect that rates should go up to contribute more money to the reserves for adequate maintenance of the system.
How many houses are out there now?
Sorry?
We've got, what, 35, 38 lots?
41 lots.
41 lots.
And 19, is it 18, 19?
23 of them.
23 are built on.
Okay.
There's 23 meter readings.
There are
There's 3 more coming.
Another three in building, so.
three
So you
buildings.
have another 15 at $300 a pop if.
And then there's also, I think
they go
there's
in if
two or three more that have
across the
approval in
road.
place but haven't started building. I mean, there's gonna be some action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're growing, including one that's not in the strata. I think they're in the water district, lot 9.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that big one on.
It's the one right on
Captain's Way.
Captain's Way, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just go through the drinking water quality annual report. This will be the 7th one this week.
You guys are the last meeting.
This is the last meeting, so we have to do this for Vancouver Coastal Health. We do this every year for every water system. And if you can go back and go onto our website and look at all the older ones if you want also. They're quite exciting. So I'll just go through it. The first few pages are just a summary introduction. And if anybody has any questions, just stop me as I'm going through this. Administration, it's all the same for all the water systems. The BIM staff. Now you can ask your question really sooner. So, the water system itself, does everybody know how the water system works? You've got 3 wells that are used, right? Very technical drawing there. You've got 3 wells that actually pump into the chlorination shed right on the road there. From there, it gets chlorinated and it goes to the reservoir. From the reservoir, it comes back down. There's one line that actually goes along Windjammer, and it does not reduce the pressure. The other one, it tees off, goes through the chlorination building, and it actually, the pressure is reduced down to all of the houses that are being built right now. From there, if Blue Water needs water, there's a meter on each one of the legs, and that's how we calculate how much water goes into Blue Water. Good system, separate line going up to go down, it works really well. It's a really basic system, groundwater, no complaints at all. Yes?
If I understood what you said, then it gets chlorinated before it goes into the tank?
Yeah, that way there's enough time as it's going up the pipe to go into the tank, and then it sits there, so you've got a lot of contact time. Gives you evener chlorine residuals, rather than, if you would need power at the tank then if you chlorinated it there, and then you don't have enough time to get back out.
Yeah, all right. Is there any sort of potential for a health compromise though in that kind of system that we have to watch for, or is it
Nope,
pretty standard?
it's good.
Okay.
There's a lot of systems that gets chlorinated, and the line going to the tank and the line coming out are the same line. So what happens is when you're using water chlorinated, it just goes directly to the houses. It's
Yeah.
not a very good system.
Okay.
That is a better system.
I think I know where 2 of the wells are. There's the one in the playground. Thank you,
Yep.
by the way, for the plastic rock. Keep the kids off it. That's, I think
Took me
that's
a long time to find that.
Okay, and then there's one on Emily,
Yeah,
that has,
there's a big yellow concrete thing on it right beside and then the other one is going down Captain's Way, the first lot on the left-hand side there.
In the driveway almost.
Yeah, and it says keep out. There's a little tin shed or something, or a little shed.
I was asked by the resident of the corner of Francis Walk and Windjammer, there's a little hut on his land that has a well that you're not using, is that
Could be. Francis and,
Captain's Way?
okay. That's the one, that's likely the well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
one's in use then, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh, okay,
Well, sometimes it's in use if we really need it. We
okay.
did turn it on the last month or so. But, yeah.
Okay.
And that was, in the subdivision, that was identified as the 3rd well. Because
Well, I'd heard that it was not in use.
very
That
seldom we
explains
use it, like, we'll likely shut it off in the next week or so, and then we won't use it all winter.
Okay,
So it's the backup well.
okay, good to know, thanks.
Yes, sir?
Well, if you're going to a pump the question, but in a given year, you got a 130,000 gallon tank, what would be the range of the level within the tank? I mean, does the tank get full during a rainy season? Or how low does it get this time of the year, which is probably the low season?
We try to keep it full all the time.
Okay.
So it's dropped down.
So the wells are geared with the floats on them to keep the tank full, assuming you get draw out of the wells.
Yeah, so what happens is, we have a sensor in the tank, and when it fills to like 95 or 97%, it's a percentage, it's not
Yeah,
feet.
yeah,
So then, when it drops down to say 90,
yeah.
it turns the pumps on.
I Understand.
and it turns one pump on, and that will fill the reservoir. And then when it draws down, the other pump kicks on.
Got it.
So they keep cycling back and forth rather than both of them running together. If it drops below a certain percentage, then both pumps will kick on.
So this being what I'm judging is a dry year, I
Yeah.
don't know if that's statistically correct or not, then at any time with the wells pumps functioning, have we ever had a crisis?
They haven't stopped all summer.
Okay, so.
So it's
So they're
below the
pumping-
90%.
Yeah, they're pumping hard, but the
Yeah.
wells haven't, the
They haven't
wells are
dry-
supplying the hard pump.
Well, what happens is there's a sensor in the well also.
Yeah.
So the level of the water is this deep. The pump starts pumping, draws the level of the well down, and at a certain point, and I don't know exactly what that is, we make the pump shut off, so it fills itself back up.
And you go to the next well probably.
Or both of them will do the same thing, so it fills back up, and once it fills to a certain level, then it'll start again. You don't wanna run your pump dry, and you don't, so we set safety limits, so it's likely, I think it's about 15 feet above the pump
Got it.
that we have it shut off, so you'll see the cycles, the pump will kick on and off
Yeah.
all the time.
Which is what we saw at that public meeting 3 years ago,
Yeah,
2 years ago?
same thing this year.
Yeah.
And in the winter, your aquifer is so, there's a lot more water in the winter, and you'll see lots of times the pump will start pumping and there's no way it'll ever shut off because there's more water coming into the aquifer than it can pump.
Yeah.
And then it could run for maybe, if there was something really bad, it could run for maybe 3 or 4 days, and the level will never go down to shut the pump off.
Understand. Okay, thank you. Good answer.
And what do the numbers on the outside of the tank mean? Since I walk my dog by there all the time.
I think they're in feet, but you have to remember that it's backwards and it's only half, so.
I get it. When it's down at the bottom, that means there's more water in the tank.
That's right.
Gotcha. And was Steve's number right, 130,000 gallons, or is that liters?
No, it's 80 cubic meters, isn't it? Should say in the,
It's in, one of the early.
yeah,
Oh, you're jumping.
591 cubic meters, 130,000 gallons.
Wow.
Period.
Yeah, not US.
Okay, I've been telling people 50,000.
Oh, no, it's way bigger than that.
And is it right that Blue Water's just 18,000?
Yep.
No wonder they're thirsty. Okay.
So that's the system, how the system works. Anybody have any questions about that, other than that? Treatment. So what happens is in the chlorination shed, based on the flow of the wells, we'll put the chlorine into the system and go to the tank. So the chlorine pump isn't just pumping aimlessly if there's no water going through. Then we go into the water quality, so the water quality testing. So I have my guys that go out every day, even at Christmas, to check 2 samples, plus the chlorination shed. So they actually take a sample of the water to make sure there's chlorine in the water. So that's why you see the little white truck every day. So they go Emily Lane and the treatment plant, and then they carry on to Blue Water and stuff like that. So they do that every day, so there's 2 samples, and then once a week, we pick up a set of samples and we send it to Vancouver Coastal Health, and they test it for coliform and E. coli. So if you look on page 6, it just talks about the chlorine residuals, how many samples we took. And I learned at the last meeting, 366 was a leap year. That's why we had 366 readings. And so it just talks about the high and the lows. It's pretty consistent with King Edward Bay. It's pretty good water. So our target is 0.2 parts per million. So if you look at Olivia Terrace at 0.27, that's the next page. That's pretty good. Other systems I go from a high of over 2.2 to a low of 0 and anywhere in between. And then below that is your THMs and your HAAs. These are the bad things that happen when you put chlorine in the water. It's a byproduct of chlorine. So the Canadian Drinking Water Guidelines say that 100, and ppb is parts per billion. So they say the safety limit is 100 parts per billion. You guys are really nice and low, 26 and 18. So that is really good. And 18 parts per million or 80 parts per million for billion for THMs, and you're down to 9 and 13. There are some in the systems that are over the 200 parts per billion. So that is really good. That's because you have well water. You're not taking surface water. Oh, the big event, the big tree that fell on the tank, that was removed last year. And that's pretty well it, other than just regular maintenance.
The tank got dented
Yeah,
when
it
the
did.
tree came down.
Yeah, we looked at it and there's no flecking or anything inside.
It's not rusting or?
No.
Okay. So you haven't done anything about it? Okay.
And we'll just keep, it's just regular maintenance if we need something. I'm not gonna change a well pump unless it burns out. And we'll just put in meters as the houses get built. So then we go into the advisory on page 9. So we flushed the water systems. I think we only flushed yours in the spring. We didn't flush it in the fall because your water isn't that dirty. But some of the other systems I have to flush twice a year. But those are the advisories that we put in the paper. And then there's another advisory that Vancouver Coastal Health asked us to do, and that's with users of compromised immune system. That's actually put in the paper for all the systems, not just your system, or they asked to do that 4 times a year. And then we talked about operators, and you've got your map. And then on page 14 is your graph of chlorine residuals. It's page 14 or page 20 of 43, whatever. I like to see a graph that is relatively, that's a pretty flat line. You see other ones that are like from the top to the bottom all over the place. It looks like a sewing machine went through it. So this is pretty good. We have to put in all this L1 and L2. These are all the samples from Vancouver Coastal Health. Doesn't tell you anything, but you have no positive samples. And then we go into your wells on page 24 of 43. So this talks about, we test the well rather than the chlorinated water. So for some reason, we've got 5 coliform count, should be 0. Why it's 5, it could be just a bad sample. Somebody stuck his finger on the rim of the sample. It's really hard to say. But that's what chlorine does. Chlorine gets rid of that to make it to 0. Anything that is highlighted is over the limit. So you really want to see 0. Like if this was in the drinking water part, you'd be on a boil water if that was 5. And then the next page is the other well, PW01. It has lots of, that definitely is somebody stuck his finger in the jar. There's no way that you would have that in your well. But chlorine will bring that back down to 0. And then the next couple pages are all the samples for THMs and HAAs. We just added it all up on that one graph of 23 and 19, I think it was. But you can go through it, and it's really hard to figure out when they start adding all the stuff to it. And I won't do any more talking.
But the absence of highlights suggests that all of this is within normal limits.
Just to follow up on that,
Yep.
on page 17 of 35, on the minerals, do we have to worry anything at all about arsenic? 'Cause, I think
No,
at one
because
point
if you
we
look-
said there's some other wells that
17.
have that problem.
I know there are
One of our wells in King of the Bay have arsenic issues. right? That's what we.
Yeah,
can use.
but we've been testing it and it's gone.
Really?
So if you look under arsenic,
That was the third one.
Yeah.
I will test that again.
You're putting 0015 and the guideline is .01, so you're. and point
Yeah,
zero
that's the only thing that worries me when I drill a new well is arsenic on Bowen Island.
Oh, okay.
Eagle Cliff has some really bad ones, so we actually have arsenic filters on them. So you can't get rid of arsenic. Maybe arsenic this one. Yeah, 0.00150, that's 0.01. So anything that's highlighted would be over the limit.
Mhm.
Yes, Alfred,
When you have a reading of 365 here,
that's wrong.
what is, it's wrong, but this comes as a result of the analysis.
Yep,
So, a sample was taken
yep.
at .0. A day or two later, that sample goes to the lab,
No, it has to be within 24 hours.
okay, a day later it goes to the, how long do they take to do the analysis?
I don't get the report back for after a week.
So during all
Yeah,
this
Wednesday.
time, there could have been a high coliform bacteria count without anybody knowing.
That's your raw water, so that's in the well. That's before it gets chlorinated or anything.
The treatment is to prevent, even if the well is spitting out massive amounts of E. coli, the
So-
treatment system is meant to.
So when I do the sample for Vancouver Coastal Health once a week,
Yeah.
that gets sent in, we do the sample on Monday, it gets sent in Tuesday, and they start sampling it right away for
The treated water.
the treated water, yes.
Yeah. So we would know in 48 hours if we.
You would know within 2 days.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have chlorine, so in other systems, I will get a count of, they'll say, oh, you've got fecal or you got E. coli in your sample. So then I go back and I look and I talk to the Vancouver Coastal Health and I go, well, that's almost impossible because I've got a 0.5 parts per million of chlorine. There's no way that the bugs could live in that. So that's why we do the samples every day to back up. When we have a bad sample, we can go, no, that's impossible. Like if the reading was 0, then yeah, you could have a bad sample.
Uh-huh.
But that's raw water, all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
wells.
On the infrastructure.
Yeah.
There was sort of a rumor, story going around that.
Oh,
there may
what's the
have been
rumor?
some- Yeah, that there might have been a leak in our system. Was there?
You know what? I looked around, I still think there might be a leak somewhere. I talked to Allard, he thinks that there might be one down by his place.
Yeah, right on him.
We've tested it a couple times, there's no chlorine in it, but I'm not convinced that there's not something there, something.
Okay.
And both he and Sue Schlobo haven't noticed, and we haven't noticed any pressure changes.
I know,
So
so
what you would think would contribute.
It could be-
If there's a leak down at that end of the system, you'd think you'd be noticing some pressure changes. and we haven't
so there
noticed
could be a spring, but I don't know yet. We gotta go around and listen again.
All right.
That's because you're using more water than you think you should be.
Yeah. From what the meters read and what goes out are totally two different things.
Yeah. And there's quite a.
It's quite a gap, yeah.
Maybe one other question. Is there anything that, a number of us are on councils that approve new building in King Edward Bay. So part of our job is to advise people who are building their first home there. Are there any special considerations like pressure differentials or something like that that we need to alert people to, or is it?
Every house has to have their own pressure reducing valve in their house. So,
So it all gets equal out. There's
Yeah.
no special considerations we need to watch for, like where a lot is or something?
no,
Okay.
unless they're trying to cheap out and not put a pressure reducing valve in.
Is that in the plumbing code? Building?
I think it is in the plumbing code,
Inspector
isn't it?
will catch
Yeah.
that, yeah.
I'm sorry, I still don't understand the discussion about the leak, and you said there was no chlorine detected in the water?
So we sampled the water that's sort of bubbling out of the ground,
Oh, I see,
Mm.
okay.
And it's like, you put this agent in and it usually will turn pink. But we can't detect it like in our meters. But that could be, the chlorine's got washed out going through all the gravel by the time it gets to the surface, so.
So it's not conclusive?
It's not, yeah, I'm still convinced there's a leak somewhere. I just don't know where yet. We went around listening. If you see me with set headphones, I'm not listening to my Walkman, I'm actually listening to squirting water.
Willow twig and.
Yeah.
Where's the willow twig?
Okay.
You actually did listen to your Walkman and not listening for water.
So that's the report.
Thank you. Very helpful, thank you.
No more questions, I think we'll conclude the public information section and move on to the local advisory committee meeting. I think Steph just needs a few minutes to reset stuff up.
Yeah, I just-
Actually, could I just say, we've received these reports for many years, and I want to thank Bob for all of them.
It's everybody helpful, you just make me look good.
He tells it straight, and we appreciate